Today we're at GYG for 2 practice sessions with the Club 100. GYG is a track with quite a lot of elevation and lots of technical corners, so it should be quite difficult but fun to drive. After a little track walk in the morning, we went to the briefing and then it was time to go out on track. I'm going to do this video slightly differently, so I'll run the highlights of the first session and then I'll come and talk to you after it, and then we'll run the second session. So that is my first session with Club 100 done. Now I thought that the karts were fun to drive, because they're very fast of course, but they're also more heavy than what I'm used to driving, which meant that they understeered a little bit more than I expected them to, and so I had to adapt my driving style by just braking a little bit earlier so I could make sure I got the nose around the corner. For the track, I thought it was a great track, very fun to drive, a little bit like a roller coaster to be honest, especially with all that elevation change. I found out that I was being a little bit cheeky with track limits, so I'll have to change that for next session.
They've asked me to have a word because you've got a lot of track limit warning. Okay, that's 4 wheels over this white line. I don't know whether maybe you're turning. Have you raced it?
Anyway, let's get on with the second session. So I've decided I'm going to do a voiceover for the rest of this session because some weird things started happening and I thought I'd just explain them a little bit more. So you might be able to hear it as I come around this section, which is meant to only be a little lift. You might be able to hear the motor starts to go a little bit and I have to kind of like give the throttle a few pumps to try and get it back, and then it came back a little bit, but as you'll see later on it kept on getting worse. I did manage to get another nice little overtake during this process though, nice little dive bomb, Probably a little bit late, but I got it done. And then I got another not so clean overtake. It was probably very late, to be honest, and I'm surprised I even got it done. The guy was very nice to leave me the room for it. Going on to this next straight, maybe able to hear the motor issues a little bit better. So of course it's a straight, so it's meant to be flat, but my motor went about halfway down it, and so I had to keep on giving it revs until it finally came back. And even then it didn't come back as good as it was before. A few laps later again the motor started going. At the time I didn't really know if it was something I was doing wrong, but looking back at it, it was probably something like running out of fuel, and then just every now and again coming back into action. As you all expected, it finally went, probably about a lap later, and yeah, this time it didn't come back. I was trying to give it some revs, but yeah, it decided it was done and then shut off. I tried coasting it around the outside just to get to, I'm not sure if you can see, but the marshals ahead, just because there was a little side road I could pull off of. Marshall did stop me slightly before though, and I tried to explain the situation. Now, I don't think he heard a word I was saying, and even on this video I can't hear what I'm saying, but he told me to take it back to the pits and get a new kart. Coming out of the pits with a fresh kart, I tried to stop to wait for a gap, but as you might be able to tell, I'm putting the brakes all the way down to the floor, and the kart's still rolling. Now I thought that was a little bit odd, but I didn't really take much notice of it to begin with, though I did give the brakes a little bit of a pump going up into the next section, just to try them out. Now, you can hear the motor go down a little bit on the revs, but I'm not sure if that's just because I was letting off the throttle, because it didn't really do much slowing down. Now I can see here I'm all the way on the brakes, and I'm still carrying in probably way too much speed for that corner. Again, I'm just trying to test them at every single corner to see if it's just that they're cold, or whether it's just the way I'm driving it, but really you can see I'm taking way too much speed in some of these corners, and I'm having to let off really early. Now, I gave it a few laps, tried it out, but the brakes weren't really getting any better. I mean, you can see there, I had my foot all the way to the floor on the brake, and I just wasn't really slowing down that much. I didn't really think it was safe, and I wasn't very comfortable staying out, so I decided to bring the kart into the pits, but I knew I wouldn't have enough time to get back out on a new kart. So I finally brought the kart in, and I tried to explain the situation to the mechanics. They let me know that that was how the brake was meant to be for the kart, but honestly I'm not too sure, because you guys have seen the footage, you saw how much I was braking, and the kart wasn't really slowing down other than probably a little bit of engine braking. So let me know what you think in the comments. That'll be it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.